Captain Vexitar clicked his mandibles together, a sound that usually preceded something unpleasant happening to someone else. Today, that someone else happened to be whatever unfortunate species had built the small transport vessel, currently limping through asteroid field 779 Beta. "Sir," chirped Navigation Officer Kill from her station, her voice carrying that particular tone that suggested she'd rather be literally anywhere else in the galaxy. "The damaged vessel appears to be human." Vexitar's 4 eyes swiveled independently, focusing on the tactical display. Humans? Oh, how delightfully boring. The universe's newest addition to the galactic community, and arguably its most disappointing. No natural weapons, no armor plating, no acidic blood or telepathic abilities. Just soft, pink meat walking around on 2 legs, convinced they were somehow special. "Excellent," Vexitar rumbled, his voice carrying across the bridge like grinding stone. "Signal the hunting pack. Tell them we've found dessert." The bridge crew of the Scarix Predator ship Bone Render erupted in chittering laughter. 12 Scarix warriors, each standing nearly 3 meters tall with razor-sharp claws and teeth designed for rending flesh from bone, found the idea of hunting humans absolutely hilarious. It wasn't really hunting after all, more like grocery shopping. "Sir," Kill continued, her voice wavering slightly, "long-range sensors indicate the human vessel contains only 2 life forms. 1 adult, 1 significantly smaller." Vexitar's mandibles spread wide in what passed for a grin among his species. "A breeding pair, perhaps. How convenient. The younger ones are always more tender." Weapons Officer Krex slammed a massive fist onto his console, causing several smaller crew members to jump. "Finally! I was getting tired of hunting those Altarian merchants. They barely put up a fight, and their meat tastes like recycled atmosphere." Now, Krex," Vexitar chided, though his tone suggested he was thoroughly enjoying himself. "Where's your sense of sport? Sometimes the best meals are the ones that don't see you coming." The human transport ship, designation Lucky Break, according to their somewhat optimistic hull markings, continued its desperate flight through the asteroid field. Smoke trailing from its port engine, it weaved between floating rocks with all the grace of a dying fish. Vexitar had to admire their tenacity, even if it was ultimately pointless. "Tactical assessment," he ordered. Junior Officer Zix pulled up holographic displays, his 6 arms working frantically across multiple interfaces. "Human transport, Meridian-class civilian vessel, light shielding, no weapon systems detected. Current trajectory suggests they're attempting to reach the inner system beacon. And their chances of success? Approximately 0.003%, sir. Their engine will fail within the next standard hour." Vexitar nodded, approvingly. "Excellent odds. I do so enjoy certainty in my hunting expeditions." The truth was, Scarix had been hunting humans for sport across this sector for the better part of 2 standard years. The creatures were laughably easy prey. No claws, no fangs, no poison sacs or natural armor. They couldn't even see properly in most light spectrums. The galaxy's most overrated species, in Vexitar's professional opinion. "Sir," Kill announced, "we're receiving a distress signal from the human vessel." "Oh, how precious," Vexitar mused. "Put it through. I could use some entertainment before the main course." The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a female human voice filled the air. The universal translator struggled slightly with the emotional undertones, but the message was clear enough. "This is Captain Zara Blackthorne of the transport vessel Lucky Break. We are experiencing critical engine failure and request immediate assistance. We have a child aboard. I repeat, we have a child aboard." The bridge fell silent for a moment, before erupting in another wave of chittering laughter. "A child!" Krex wheezed between chuckles. "Oh, this keeps getting better." Vexitar raised one clawed hand for silence. "Open a response channel." He cleared his throat with a sound like grinding metal. "Captain Blackthorn, this is Captain Vexitar of the Scarix vessel Bone Render. We've received your distress call and are delighted to offer our assistance." "Thank the stars," came the relieved response. "We're transmitting our coordinates now. Our engine is failing fast." "Yes," Vexitar replied smoothly. "I can see that. Don't worry, Captain. We'll be with you very shortly." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Begin the approach. Standard hunting formation. I want them alive when we board." "Sir," Kill ventured carefully, "what about galactic law? Attacking civilian vessels is technically—" "Technically what, navigation officer?" Vexitar's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Technically illegal? Technically wrong? Tell me, Chill, who exactly is going to report us? The humans?" The bridge crew erupted in laughter again. The joke never got old. Humans were so new to galactic civilization that most species barely acknowledged their existence. Who would believe their word against a Scarix hunting pack? "Helm, bring us alongside their vessel. Krex, prepare boarding parties. I want a full capture, not a kill. Living prey is so much more interactive." The Lucky Break continued its futile flight as the Bone Render closed distance. Through the massive viewscreen, Vexitar could see the human vessel more clearly now. Burn marks across its hull told the story of their recent encounter with pirates, though they'd apparently managed to escape that particular fate. Unfortunately for them, they'd only delayed the inevitable. "Sir," Zix called out, "I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from the human vessel. It's difficult to classify." Vexitar's attention sharpened. "Unusual how?" "The readings are unlike anything in our database. It's almost like biological energy, but amplified somehow. Very faint, but definitely there." "Hidden weapons system?" "Negative, sir. The signature is too organic, almost like a life form, but the energy output is concerning." Vexitar waved dismissively. "Probably just their primitive life support systems malfunctioning. Humans are notorious for their shoddy engineering." The Bone Render drew closer, its predatory bulk dwarfing the small transport ship. Vexitar could almost taste victory. 2 more humans for the collection, and if the smaller one was indeed a juvenile, well, the markets on Vorthan Prime paid exceptionally well for young specimens. "Prepare magnetic clamps," he ordered. "And Krex, make sure your teams understand. I want them breathing when we take them aboard." "Understood, sir," Krex rumbled, his massive frame already heading toward the airlock. But as the Bone Render extended its docking tube toward the Lucky Break, none of the Scarix crew noticed the faint biological energy signature that Zix had detected beginning to spike. Somewhere deep in the human vessel, something was stirring. Something that had been content to sleep peacefully through the long journey until the sound of predators had reached its sensitive ears. In the transport ship's small cargo hold, curled up next to a 10-year-old human girl named Mira Solis, something opened one dark, intelligent eye. The Scarix were about to learn that humans, despite their apparent harmlessness, had one particular talent that made them truly dangerous. They had an inexplicable ability to befriend the most absolutely terrifying creatures in the known galaxy. And Mira's best friend had just woken up from his nap. Captain Zara Blackthorn checked her daughter's safety harness one more time, her hands shaking slightly. The engine was failing faster than her worst-case projections, and the approaching ship's response had sent ice through her veins. Something in that alien voice had sounded wrong, predatory. "Mama," Mira whispered, her bright blue eyes wide with concern. "Why does Buster seem upset?" Zara glanced toward the cargo hold where her daughter's pet was housed during flight. The containment unit was rated for Class 7 dangerous fauna, though she'd always thought that was somewhat excessive. Sure, Buster was protective, but he'd been with Mira since she was 5. He was practically a member of the family. A low, rumbling sound echoed from the cargo hold. Not quite a growl, but something deeper. Something that made the ship's hull vibrate slightly. "He probably just senses we're in trouble, sweetheart," Zara said, though her voice betrayed her growing unease. Through the viewport, the alien ship loomed larger. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of their transport, with a hull design that seemed specifically crafted to, intimidate. Weapon ports lined its sides like predatory teeth, and the overall aesthetic screamed, "Nothing good happens here." The rumbling from the cargo hold grew louder. "Mama," Mira said quietly, "I think Buster wants out." Zara's blood ran cold. "No, honey. Buster needs to stay in his containment unit. You know the rules about space travel." But even as she said it, she could hear the distinctive sound of massive claws scratching against reinforced titanium steel. Buster was definitely not happy about their current situation. The alien ship's docking tube connected with their hull, and Zara felt the lucky brake shudder under the magnetic clamps. Whatever was about to happen, it was too late to run now. From somewhere in the ship's systems, she could hear the distinctive hiss of an airlock being overridden. The boarding had begun. On the bridge of the Bone Render, Vexitar watched with satisfaction as his boarding parties entered the human vessel. Through the tactical display, he could see the heat signatures of the 2 humans huddled in what appeared to be the bridge area. "Crex, report," he commanded. "Boarding successful, sir. No resistance encountered. The humans appear to be waiting for us." "Excellent. Bring them aboard. And Crex, remember what I said about keeping them breathing." "Understood, sir. Though, sir, there's something odd. I'm detecting a large life form in their cargo hold. The energy readings are significant." Vexitar frowned. Define significant. "Well, sir, if I didn't know better, I'd say it was a Class 7 biological threat. But that's impossible. Humans don't travel with dangerous fauna." "Probably their food stores," Vexitar dismissed. "Humans are known to keep living livestock. Check it after you secure the primary targets." What Vexitar didn't know, what none of the Scarix could have possibly known, was that humans had a unique relationship with their galaxy's most dangerous predators. While other species fled from Class 7 threats, humans had the inexplicable tendency to adopt them as pets. And there were very few creatures in the known galaxy that qualified as more dangerous than a fully grown Terran honey badger, especially one whose favorite little human was currently being threatened by aliens with sharp teeth and hostile intentions. In the cargo hold of the Lucky Break, Buster opened both eyes and began to assess the situation. Threats aboard his human's ship. Unknown entities with aggressive pheromone signatures. His acute hearing picked up his little human's elevated heart rate from 2 decks away. Buster had exactly 0 tolerance for things that upset his human. The containment unit, rated for Class 7 dangerous fauna, had been designed by engineers who had never actually encountered a honey badger in full protective mode. They'd built it based on theoretical specifications and laboratory observations. They had not accounted for the sheer, bloody-minded determination of an Earth creature that had evolved alongside lions, hyenas, and things that went bump in the African night. Buster examined the reinforced titanium steel walls of his prison. Then he examined the electronic locking mechanism. Then he examined the backup security measures. After careful consideration, he decided that none of these obstacles were particularly relevant to his current objectives. The containment unit lasted approximately 4.7 seconds against 20 kilograms of concentrated fury, razor-sharp claws, and a complete disregard for the laws of physics. In the bridge of the Lucky Break, Zara heard a sound she'd hoped never to hear during spaceflight. The distinctive screech of tearing metal, followed immediately by the ship's computer announcing in its maddeningly calm voice, "Containment breach detected in cargo hold 7. Class 7 biological threat has been released. Please remain calm and follow emergency protocols." "Oh no," Zara whispered. "Mama," Mira said, her voice carrying the kind of innocent confidence that only children possess. "I think Buster wants to meet our visitors." From the corridor leading to the cargo hold came a sound that defied easy description. It was part growl, part shriek, and part something that suggested the laws of nature were more like guidelines anyway. The first Scarix boarding party member to encounter Buster lasted longer than the containment unit had. Almost 6 seconds. His screams echoed through the ship's communication systems, providing real-time commentary to both crews about the exact moment a 3-meter-tall apex predator discovered that size meant absolutely nothing to a creature that had once held its own against a full-grown rhinoceros. "Crex!" Vextar's voice crackled over the comm. "Report! What's happening over there?" "Sir," came Crex's increasingly panicked response, "we appear to have encountered a dot complication." The sound of weapons fire erupted through the comm system, followed immediately by more screaming. "What kind of complication?" Vexitar demanded. "The kind that seems to be immune to plasma rifles, sir." Another scream, this one notably higher-pitched, suggested that a second boarding party member had made Buster's acquaintance. "Sir," Kill's voice was barely a whisper. "Those energy readings from the human ship, they're spiking." "How much of a spike?" "Class 12 threat level, sir, and climbing." Vextar stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Class 12? That was reserved for things like Vorthon battle beasts and Altarian war serpents, not pets on human transport ships. "Crex, fall back, I repeat. Fall back immediately." But Crex's response was lost in the sound of something that might have been claws against hull plating, if claws could somehow bend reinforced steel like soft plastic. On the Lucky Break, Mira pressed her face against the viewport and smiled. "Look, Mama," she said cheerfully, "Buster's protecting us." Zara looked where her daughter was pointing and felt her knees go weak. Through the connecting airlock, she could see into the alien ship's boarding bay. What she saw there would require extensive therapy to forget. Buster had encountered 7 Scarix warriors. The operative word being had. The honey badger sat calmly in the middle of the carnage, methodically cleaning blood from his claws. When he noticed Mira watching, he looked up and made a sound that was almost certainly his version of, "Don't worry, little human. Everything is under control." 20 meters of alien corridor behind him suggested that his definition of under control might need some refinement. "Sir!" Zix's voice was approaching panic levels. "The biological threat has entered our ship. It's moving toward the main corridor." Vexitar's 4 eyes went wide. "Seal all bulkheads. Emergency protocols, now!" But it was too late. Buster had found his way into the bone render, and he had formed some very strong opinions about species that threatened his favorite human. The Scarix were about to learn why honey badgers were considered Class 7 dangerous fauna, and why humans, despite their apparent harmlessness, were the only species crazy enough to keep them as pets. The emergency klaxons aboard the bone render shrieked with the kind of urgency typically reserved for hull breaches and reactor meltdowns. Captain Vextar discovered that neither of those scenarios seemed quite as terrifying as the current situation. A 20-kilogram ball of concentrated violence was systematically dismantling his crew, one warrior at a time. "Status report," he barked, though part of him really didn't want to know. "Sir," Officer Zix stammered, his 6 arms trembling as he worked the tactical console, "the biological threat has breached sections 7 through 12. Current casualty count stands at, well, all of them, sir." "All of them?" "Everyone who encountered it, yes, sir." The creature appears to be moving toward the bridge with considerable enthusiasm. Through the ship's internal camera system, Vextar watched in growing horror as Buster methodically worked his way through the corridor. The honey badger paused occasionally to examine his handiwork, tilting his head with the kind of professional satisfaction usually reserved for artists viewing their completed masterpieces. "What in the 7 hells is that thing?" Weapons Officer Krex demanded, his voice cracking slightly. "According to the database," Kill replied, her mandibles chattering nervously, "it's listed as Mellivora capensis. Common name? Honey badger. Native to Earth's African continent." "A badger?" Vextar's voice rose 3 octaves. "My crew is being systematically eliminated by something called a badger?" The database notes that honey badgers are approximately 65 centimeters in length and weigh roughly 20 kilograms, Kill continued, apparently finding comfort in facts and figures. They subsist primarily on insects, small mammals, and… Oh my. What? The dietary notes continue. They also hunt venomous snakes, raid beehives defended by thousands of stinging insects, and have been observed successfully attacking creatures 20 times their size. The behavioral assessment reads, and I quote, "Honey badgers possess an almost supernatural indifference to pain, injury, and death. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They do not negotiate." A new sound echoed through the ship's corridors. Not screaming this time, but rather the distinctive noise of reinforced bulkheads being peeled apart, like fruit rinds. "Sir," Zix announced with the kind of calm that preceded complete psychological breakdown, "it's reached the bridge level." Vexitar stared at his crew, each of whom was doing their best impression of someone who desperately wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. "Seal the bridge. Maximum security protocols." "Sir, with respect," Kill pointed out, "maximum security protocols didn't slow it down at all. It's been treating our bulkheads like decorative suggestions." The scratching sounds grew closer, accompanied by what could only be described as the honey badger equivalent of humming. Buster was apparently enjoying his work. "Sir," came a new voice over the comm system, though this one was distinctly human. "This is Captain Blackthorn of the Lucky Break. I believe we need to discuss terms." Vexitar practically lunged for the communication controls. "Terms? Terms? Your creature is murdering my crew." "Correction." Zara's voice remained maddeningly calm. "Buster is defending my daughter from what he perceives as a threat. Which, to be fair, you are. Call it off. Order it to stop." A pause, then, almost gently, "Captain Vextar, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about the relationship between humans and their pets." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "We don't order them around. We ask nicely and hope they're in a cooperative mood." The scratching sounds stopped. Through the bridge's armored viewports, Vexitar could see into the corridor beyond. 2 dark eyes peered back at him with the kind of intelligence that suggested their owner was currently calculating the most efficient route through whatever obstacles stood between him and his objectives. Buster had found the bridge. However, Zara continued, Buster is generally reasonable. If you were to return us to our ship and leave us alone, he might be persuaded that you're no longer a threat. Might be persuaded? He's quite independent-minded. It's really more of a suggestion than a command. The bridge doors, rated to withstand direct plasma cannon fire, began to buckle inward. "This is impossible!" Vexitar shrieked. "Nothing that small should be able to." His protest was cut off as one of the doors simply fell over, revealing Buster sitting calmly in the doorway. The honey badger surveyed the bridge with the air of a property inspector making notes about necessary improvements. The Scarix crew pressed themselves against the far wall, which would have been more effective if the far wall hadn't been approximately 3 meters away from a creature that could apparently cross any distance in the time it took to blink. Buster's gaze fixed on Captain Vextar, and his expression shifted into what could only be described as polite inquiry, as if to say, "Are you the one in charge of threatening my human?" "Nice. Badger," Vextar ventured. Buster's expression suggested this was not the correct response. "Sir," Kill whispered, "perhaps we should consider Captain Blackthorn's offer." "You want to negotiate with terrorists?" "Sir, with respect, I don't think the Badger understands the concept of negotiation." This assessment proved accurate when Buster rose to his feet and began walking toward Vextar with the unhurried pace of someone who had all day and several creative ideas about how to spend it. "Wait!" Vexitar held up his hands. "Captain Blackthorn, we accept your terms." "Excellent," came Zara's voice. "Buster, sweetie, the nice aliens are going to let us go now." Buster paused and looked toward the communication console, his head tilted in consideration. Then he looked back at Vextar with an expression that clearly conveyed, this had better not be some kind of trick. "We're releasing the docking clamps now," Vexitar announced, his voice barely a squeak. "Wonderful. Buster, come home now. Mira wants to give you a treat." At the mention of his favorite human's name, Buster's entire demeanor changed. The terrifying predator vanished, replaced by something that looked almost cute. He made a sound that was probably honey badger for, "Oh boy, treats," and trotted back toward the airlock with the enthusiasm of a puppy. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of multiple Scarix trying to remember how breathing was supposed to work. "Sir," Zix finally managed, "the human vessel is requesting clearance to depart." "Granted," Vextar croaked. "Granted immediately. In fact, give them an escort, a ceremonial honor guard, whatever keeps them happy." Through the view screen, they watched as the Lucky Break limped away toward the inner system beacon, smoke still trailing from its damaged engine, but its crew very much alive. "Sir," Kill ventured carefully, "what do we tell Command about this?" Vexitar considered the question. How did one explain that a single human child's pet had single-handedly decimated a Scarix hunting pack? How did one convey that the galaxy's supposedly harmless newcomers traveled with creatures that treated 3-meter-tall apex predators like minor inconveniences? "We tell them nothing," he decided finally. "We report engine trouble, a minor technical malfunction that required extended repairs." "And the crew casualties?" "Training accident. Very unfortunate. These things happen." The bridge crew nodded in understanding. Sometimes the truth was too absurd for official reports. "Sir," Krex spoke up, his voice still shaking slightly, "what about future human encounters? The hunting packs have been targeting them across 3 sectors." Vextar thought about this carefully, about honey badgers and their apparent indifference to the natural order of the universe. about the casual way the human mother had discussed her daughter's pet, as if 20 kilograms of concentrated fury was perfectly normal cargo for a family transport. "Send a message to all Scarix vessels," he ordered. "Humans are to be avoided. Complete prohibition on engagement." "Sir? But the hunting regulations clearly state—" "The hunting regulations," Vexitar interrupted, "did not account for the possibility that prey species might travel with Class 12 biological threats as family pets." He paused, staring out at the stars where the lucky break had vanished. "Besides," he added quietly, "I have a suspicion that honey badgers aren't the worst thing humans keep as pets." Meanwhile, aboard the Lucky Break, Mira was giving Buster his promised treat, while Zara worked frantically to keep their damaged engines running long enough to reach the next station. "Mama," Mira said, as she scratched behind Buster's ears, "why were those aliens so scared of Buster? He's not scary." Zara glanced at her daughter, then at the honey badger who was currently purring like a furry chainsaw and looking about as threatening as a stuffed animal. "Well, sweetheart, I think they just didn't understand that Buster's a good boy." "The best boy," Mira agreed, hugging her pet. "Aren't you, Buster?" Buster made a contented rumbling sound and settled down for a nap. Protecting his human was exhausting work, but somebody had to do it. 3 sectors away, word began to spread through the galactic underworld. Whispered warnings in spaceport bars and transmitted through encrypted criminal networks. A new rule, adopted with surprising speed and universal acceptance. Don't mess with humans. Ever. It wasn't that humans were particularly dangerous, the warnings explained. Individually, they remained as harmless as ever. But they had this peculiar habit of making friends with the most absolutely terrifying creatures in the known galaxy. And those friends had very strong opinions about people who threatened their humans. The Galactic Council's Xenobiology Department began receiving urgent requests for updated threat assessments on various Earth species. Words like dog, cat, and goose started appearing on watch lists alongside traditional biological hazards. When researchers discovered that humans had also domesticated creatures called bears in some regions, the Council seriously considered upgrading humanity's threat classification. When they learned about human relationships with creatures called dolphins and octopuses, several species began lobbying for immediate quarantine protocols around the Sol system. And when some unfortunate intern made the mistake of looking up something called a Canadian goose, the Galactic Biological Threat Assessment Division had to take a collective sick day. But none of that was Mira's concern. She was just a 10-year-old girl with her pet honey badger, traveling the galaxy and making friends wherever they went, whether those friends wanted to be made or not. 6 months later, Captain Vexitar received a report from Deep Space monitors. A human diplomatic vessel had been spotted in the Outer Rim, escorted by what appeared to be a small flotilla of various species ships. The formation was peaceful, celebratory even. The report noted that the human vessel was broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. "Mira Solis, Galactic Peace Ambassador, aboard the transport Good Boy, traveling with full diplomatic immunity and her emotional support Honey Badger." Vexitar deleted the report without reading the rest. Some things were better left unknown. In the depths of space, aboard a ship with the most optimistic name in the galaxy, a little girl and her best friend continued their journey among the stars. Behind them, they left a trail of species who had learned an important lesson about assumptions, underestimation, and the incredible danger of threatening something a human child considered family. The galaxy was a large place, full of wonders and terrors beyond imagination, but it had never encountered anything quite like the friendship between a human child and her honey badger. And frankly, it wasn't entirely sure it was ready for what came next.